Welcome to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, the podcast for high achievers who want to stay sharp, focused, and full of energy despite their diagnosis. With your host, National Board Certified Functional Medicine Health Coach, Julie Michelson, where Julie helps you take your power back from autoimmunity. And now here's your host, Julie Michelson.
Welcome back to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast. I'm your host, Julie Michelson, and today we're changing things up a bit. I'm joined by Tatiana Tsoir. Tatiana is a numbers expert with over 15 years of experience helping entrepreneurs and business owners become the boss of their bottom line. But she isn't here to talk about accounting. She's here to share a bit of her healing journey with us to inspire and empower listeners to take responsibility for their health. She shares how she went from resistant and skeptical to an inspiration for all who know her to uplevel their health. I'm so excited to have her on the show. Tatiana, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much, Julie. It's so awesome to be here.
I'm so excited for this because this is, well, I'm always happy to talk with you, but I think that this is going to add so much value for listeners because this is a little twist. You are the inspired in the inspired living. So that is my goal for our conversation today.
Awesome. I'm happy to share my story.
Awesome. Which was exactly where I want to start is how you got here, and how you got here, meaning, I guess, how you got to me, how you decided to work on your health journey. Where were you? What were you experiencing? And how are you now?
So I think I got to you through a mutual event that we paid to be a part of, and then it kind of got postponed for about 2 years. It was great to connect because that I guess community of people is really very, very respectful and really supportive and things like that. And so before I kind of got to know you and met you, I was very skeptical about just coaches in general, but also health coaches specifically, because I thought, like, what's the point of a health coach? And I think that a lot of people have the same limiting beliefs, I guess is the right expression. But because I've already worked with a business coach before, I've worked with actually a couple of them before, I thought, okay, you know what? I really, like, what was happening with me didn't bother me enough to really start taking care of it. And I didn't think that, honestly, I would have results, which is, I guess, typical for many people, just like therapy is something that someone who's from a post-Soviet Union society doesn't think can help or is actually meaningful or valuable. Similarly, health coaching is kind of in the same bucket. Oh, like if you're using someone who's, if you're using a therapist or a health coach, like there's something wrong with you kind of thing. So definitely had to kind of get through that. But, I've had psoriasis since I was 10. And I think that's about the time that my sister was born. So it's probably her fault that I got psoriasis. Just kidding. But I think that, probably stress related to this, affected me probably more than I knew, because I don't remember being, treated differently or anything like that. But maybe just subconsciously somewhere affected me. And that's kind of when it started in my head. And so when it's on your head, it's not really seen. And so it doesn't really prompt any attention or action. And so, like, I've lived with it for many years, and it didn't really bother me as much. When I got pregnant with my second child, that's when I started noticing things on my face, and they were kind of going into in the circular kind of pattern. on my forehead, on my like cheek, coming down to to the chin. And I used to use cortisone creams, so just a little bit of a steroid to kind of get that under control. But I also noticed that, and this was my kind of first experience, where I've noticed that as I was eating, like my sister was actually living with us at the time, and she's a really great cook, but she cooks the traditional kitchenware, traditional cuisine, I guess, where we cook with whatever we're used to. So she wasn't paying too much attention to any sort of gluten or no gluten or corn or anything like that. And I noticed that there was a certain dish that I really liked, which it's really tasty. I noticed that the next day I would have really more inflamed breakouts, I guess red breakouts, because I didn't think about inflammation at the time. And again, I thought that this is just it. And, people would say, a client of mine who has psoriasis would tell me, oh, I also have psoriasis. I just go to the doctor, they give me this shot and it disappears. And I knew that I didn't want like the easy pill solution type of thing.
Sure.
I wanted something, but at the same time, I wasn't motivated enough to really do something about it. And in this community of people, the Unfair Advantage community, there were a couple of health coaches, and you were the one who reached out first to see if we could work together in the accounting capacity. And so kind of learning more about you as a coach and your product, and meaning that the products that you work on and you offer, gave me sort of an insight. And even then, we talked about me working with you, and I kind of pushed it out because I didn't think that I didn't think that it actually would work. I didn't think that it's something, it kind of feels like when you get some sort of a diagnosis, whether it's, an autoimmune or diabetes or something else, you kind of accept it and learn to live with it, as opposed to, oh, there's something I can do about it. So I think that that's kind of because I'm not a doctor, even though I kind of feel that I'm sort of tangentially connected to medicine because both of my parents were doctors. I still feel that it's certainly been a skeptical moment, because even though it shouldn't be this way, because my mom was a doctor, but she saw that people want a pill instead of being healthy.
Sure.
And she just quit and, got into acupuncture and other alternative medicine stuff where she could help people, but they actually need to want to be healthy first. So it's very weird that I wasn't sort of on the same page with her, but again, I'm not a doctor, so I was skeptical. And I think we started working together in like May of 2020 or so. May or June. And I think we started working together as you being my coach in like October. So it took me, or maybe September, it took me a few months to sort of be like, okay, let's see what this is about.
Yeah. And I commend you, because this is exactly why I do the podcast. Everybody that knows my story knows when I was diagnosed, I was told nothing you could do but take the pills, the infusions, the shot, the whatever, fill in the blank. And it is what it is. And that's kind of where you were. Like, I have psoriasis. I've had it since I was 10. I love how you threw your sister under the bus a second time, by the way, with saying she cooked you delicious food that might not have been so good for your health. But so it was a process for you and I'm always tell you, I'm so honored the trust you've given me, and that you were skeptical, but you were like, I'll try it. I will try it. And one of the reasons I wanted you to share your experience is you did it, you're doing it, anybody can do it. And even when we don't think we can, and that is the beauty of having somebody like a health coach support you and step by step, because it can be overwhelming. It really can be. So you have taken the overwhelm out of business for me. I was that person who, I love coaching. I love my job. I love my clients. And I didn't want to look at numbers. I would look at numbers probably like way too many people when I had to, right? When it was time to get stuff to the accountant for taxes or, and probably didn't thoroughly understand them anyway. As far as how I can use the knowledge of the numbers to my benefit to grow the business and continue to expand and grow. And I look at it kind of the same way. We did all these labs on you, and that was really helpful because you're already used to, interpreting the data and like, okay, now we can do something with this. And I will say, even when that data came back, there was still you were fearful of like, well, that sounds too hard. Like, and I don't want to give up, my cream and my coffee. I don't want to give, the amount of negotiating, but I always say you have made me a gentler coach, because I look at you now and if somebody had asked me when we first started working together, like, is she going to stick with this and really do it? I would have said, no way. So it's one of the things that makes me so excited is that who am I to, like, I have no idea who can do what, right? We can all do this. It's been remarkable just watching you step by step by step. I said to you before we hit record, do you realize that all those things you said you could never do, as far as the changes you were making, you've already done it, like you do it now. And I'm like, how's it going? You're like, it's easy. It's not that big a deal.
It took some time. And I think that for analytical people like me, it's really important to understand the reason behind it. For me, it was always the case since I was a kid. If my mom said, oh, you have to do this or that, I would say,
what?
I would need a reason for that.
Yeah.
And then I'll be like, oh, okay, I'll do it. Or I won't do it.
Yeah. Well, and that connecting the dots is so important. And I told you in the beginning when we were doing your elimination diet at first, like, bear with me, is because you're going to find out for yourself what foods are triggering the psoriasis, what foods are driving inflammation. Because as wonderful as I am, just because Julie said so isn't going to create lifelong change. And now it puts you in the driver's seat. You have the power to decide.
Yeah. And for me, elimination diet wasn't really working in a sense that it took way too long to figure things out. And because I was the only one who was doing it in the family, it was also because you cook something for other people that is tasty. And then you're like, okay, I'm eating this, and everybody's like, oh, yuck, whatever, without even having tried it, which is the most frustrating part. And so you kind of feel alone in that.
On
so
an island.
For me,
yeah,
exactly. And so for me, elimination diet didn't work as well because I would always cheat with something else.
Yes, you would. But you bring up such a good point, because there are two approaches. And it was a particularly challenging time. You had multi-generations in the family. And so mom would cook and hubby would cook, and the kids would, I have seen time and time again when somebody says, I'm not going to double cook or triple cook.
Yeah.
And the kids actually do eat the food instead of just look at it and it doesn't look like what they're used to. It works. But the support, and that was a huge shift for you, because all of a sudden your husband got into wellness, and actually he found Dave Asprey and Bulletproof, which was my gateway into functional medicine. And it just created such a shift. It was like, all of a sudden you guys are eating amazing, healthy food, and you're not thinking about, well, his dinner looks so much better than mine. And, he was always supportive of you in theory, but it became like in action. And it made life so easy for you.
it made it doable. So coffee was a big thing. So coming back to the elimination diet, I found that for me specifically, just doing the food sensitivities test right off the bat would be better. I
Yep.
still did it just like maybe a month or two later. And a lot of the things I had suspicions about already, but some of the things I completely didn't realize that I was eating, and it was highly inflammatory for me. So just eliminating some of those things like apples and carrots and turkey and a couple of other things already made a huge difference. And so when you know that's that thing that you're eating is causing your body to swell and get inflamed, it's really powerful. Now our next step is sleep, but we can talk about this in a little bit. But
which is still way better than it used to be.
For sure. But it's again, with the power of data, when you see, oh, this is what really inflames you, and this is what's causing a lot of it, you start thinking, do I really want to eat it or not?
Right. And sometimes the answer is yes. Like sometimes it's like, yes, this is worth it. And, I don't have to be on camera tomorrow, so it's fine. And then often the answer is no. And that's the power. Like that's I used to call you the sauce queen, because you would be like, it would be all be going so well. And then you're like, I had a flare. I'm like, what'd you have? I don't know. I had some sauce. Like, so, but now, like, okay, I can have sauce if it's made of X, or, it would be like, oh, well, I, have a deposit in the bank account. I have no idea how much it is, but it's there, so really getting under, and thank you for mentioning like the importance of the food sensitivity test. We've done episodes just on that before. And I do them right off the bat now for everybody, because we all want results.
Yeah, exactly.
It's, I don't know, but watching you, so for me, back to labs and data, I am a data geek, it's just different data than you are. One of the most exciting things for me to track, because this is, I love the fact that you now are in charge of your psoriasis, right? It's not in charge of you. But I also, and I checked before we hit record, so I know you're okay with me sharing, when we did your first full functional panel, I saw that you had elevated thyroid antibodies. And to watch those numbers reverse, this is what this is all about, is reversing things. Now, you didn't have any symptoms of Hashimoto's yet. You had what we would call subclinical, as far as, if you walked into a regular doctor's office, they'd be like, you're fine. Oh no, you're fine.
Yeah.
And now
you
can stay fine. Like now you don't have, you're turning that around completely. And we've gotten to dig deeper and figure out, okay, well, what triggered that? And now we know, because we did more panels and more testing, and now we're going after that stuff so that we just eliminate the problems altogether. But that is anybody can do it. It does take time. It takes support. It takes the right kind of tests to really look under the right rocks to see what's really going on.
Yeah. And honestly, there is even I don't know if it's Buddhist, because, these quotes sometimes don't get us attributed to the right person, but
sure.
There is a quote, and I, again, don't know who it is, but it says, knowing others is wisdom, knowing yourself is enlightenment. And I think that it's absolutely true, not only when it comes to your soul, but also when it comes to your health as well. Understanding kind of what really triggers you, and paying attention to not silencing the signals that the body sends you, but actually listening to them, I think for me is a big lesson, in our relationship and working together over these years.
I love that. It's amazing. And watching you first take charge of your health. What people don't realize when they start working with me or any help, like when you hire a health coach or you go down this road, it's often the first step in prioritizing yourself. And had I said that to you back then, you would have looked at me like I was crazy, because you're like, I've got these businesses and I'm in charge of me. But you were pushing, you were like, you were getting it all done. But you were working weekends, there's this amazing, beautiful, and this is part of the healing, you've reduced that chronic stress. You're still extremely productive, probably more productive than you were 2 years ago. For those of you that don't know Tatiana, this woman is always taking on a new project. It's amazing. But you're spending weekends with the family and spending summer days with the kids, and, really reducing that chronic stress and that pushing, and you're allowing the ease. And it's the same in your body. But it does ripple out. And the example that you're setting for your kids and one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because everywhere you go, people want to know what you're doing. And so I thought, well, let's tell the world what she's doing.
Yeah. It's nice. I get a lot of sort of messages from Instagram, people who've known me for a few years, and they say, what's your secret? Like, what are you doing that we don't know about? What's the diet? And it's not really a diet. And when people ask me, yes, I do drink bulletproof coffee, which I had to get used to, but now I don't really feel the difference between that and a coffee with cream. And I've tried, meaning like I've tried to drink the cream with coffee, and I don't see a difference. Like, to me, it tastes just as good.
Which was a process for everybody listening. That was one of your sticking points in the beginning, where you were like, no way, I can't do that. Like, that's ridiculous. And so it's a process. Sometimes it's when you make, a certain change that gives you a little bit of improvement, that gives you the drive to then try the next thing and up level. So it wasn't like, okay, you went to bed one night and woke up the next morning and completely changed everything. I know.
It took a while. And I've had some setbacks when I went through this intermittent fasting, kind of boosted by bulletproof coffee. It was an incremental change every day. It was half a pound to a pound every day of extra weight, extra, I guess, fat that I was losing. But then, I had a little bit of an allergic reaction. So that set me back. And plus the holidays set me back a bit. But still, in 4 months, my photo shoot was about 2 months, well, a month and a half ago, I guess. And for the photo shoot, I lost since October 11th, which is when I started fully on this anti-inflammatory diet and et cetera, I lost 32 pounds. But it's not just, the weight, which was easy because I wasn't doing anything special. I wasn't feeling hungry because the coffee took care of that. But it's the way I feel.
Yeah.
I don't get mood swings. I feel the best I've felt as an adult.
Wow.
Right now. And that's pretty powerful, I think.
That's amazing. And that's how it should be. And those stories of, oh, well, you're a mom now, oh, you're getting older, although you're so young. But they're stories, I joke all the time. Now I think maybe you get it a little bit better when I'm like, I'm 53 and I feel so much better than I felt in my 40s. And now, granted, I was really sick in my 30s and early 40s. But there's no reason why we have to decline. I had said I don't know if it was actually for my podcast or somebody else's, I had made the comment, it just kind of flew out of my mouth. I want to live young until I'm done. And then I'm like, oh, I like that. I'm writing that one down. And that's what I see with you. You just exude health and well-being and life, and it's fun. And for listeners, Tatiana travels. She traveled internationally recently, and she is just like, yeah, it's no big deal. It's fine. I got this. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very cool to feel this, to have this feeling of I'm in charge. You kind of, when it comes to your health and actually pretty much anything in life, it's very hard to control a lot of things, which doesn't stop me from trying, but I really, it's with my health now. And again, my husband has played a big role in that, because he made it easier for me to not slip up or trip up, or whatever the expression is, and really stick to it, and really not cheat, because we removed all the cheat food from the house. Pretty much, we still, like, the kids still drink milk sometimes, very rarely. They still eat like fruits and stuff when they want to.
That's good.
And
they should.
Right. And so we
Yeah.
we don't buy bread, for example. We don't buy sour cream and things like that, like things that really that are really critical to start and to give them a good habit. So my husband has really supported me in a big way and made it easier for me to really take charge of my health. And now I'm at a point where even if he stops supporting me, which he will not, because he has his own reason for being healthy.
Yeah.
Even if he were to stop, I would still have enough strength and knowledge to move forward and to keep doing what I'm doing.
Which is amazing. And the flip side of that is, when we were first working together and there was all this multiple cooking going on, and you were feeling like, you couldn't eat anything, I was like, please, could you talk your husband into doing it with you, for him, because I wanted him to be as healthy as I knew we were going to get you. And so, he stepped up for you, but what a gift for his health as well. Yeah. Like, I love that he's eating the way he's eating now. And again, the kids, and that's the evolution. So many parents eventually get to that point and they're like, wait a minute, why am I feeding this to my kids if it's not good enough for me to eat, right? Like, if I now have changed my mindset around food, but I cannot stress enough your willingness to just take one step. And like you said, there's no smooth path. Like, there's going to be setbacks, whether it's weight stops coming off, or psoriasis flares in the beginning and we had no idea why. Again, the getting you to buy into like that chronic stress really is driving inflammation. That's a really hard one for a lot of people, especially if they don't feel stressed. And then I asked no, you did not. But I'm like, oh my gosh, but like, just listening to everything you've taken on stresses me out. And you are typical of my clients. My clients mostly are entrepreneurs, or really purpose-driven people who take on a lot. You push, but now you don't have to push. Now you just can handle more, because you're giving your body and your mind, this support that it needs, by hitting all of those areas. Yeah. So I love it.
I wanted to share something that could be useful for your audience, if you're okay with it. I was sort of, having grown up in a family of doctors, I was always kind of not questioning, but I guess, what's the expression? Double checking, or I guess double checking is the right word. What the doctors would tell me, and I think it's like, I'll give you an example, your listeners an example too. Like, my dad was a doctor, and so as soon as he got diagnosed with cancer, he knew that he would need to eliminate carbs, because carbs burn a sugar and cancer grows on sugar, dairy because it has lactose, it also is sugar, and fruits because even though it's natural sugar, it's still sugar.
Right.
And so he did all of that immediately, and because of that, he outlived his life expectancy with his stage of cancer he doubled it. So it was initially 30 months. He lived about 6.5 years. And so I think that, and in the US, because he was a Soviet trained doctor in the US, the oncologist that works with you typically doesn't tell you, oh, you got diagnosed with cancer, you should really eliminate the diet. And I've asked why a number of times, and the doctor would say, well, it's not my job, it's the dietitian's job. So really it's your job as a human being to ask about it, to inquire, to understand how to help your body to live and work and whatever. And, we all have our primary care providers, which is okay, I guess. They run a 1-page lab report every year. And according to that lab report, I was completely healthy. And they said, well, go to the dermatologist with your psoriasis and things like that. But I knew that if I go to a dermatologist, they would just prescribe me some medication. They wouldn't really solve the problem. And so my inquiring mind kind of was always on the lookout. And then when we started working together, and when I started working with Dr. Houghton, I also realized how, I had a question: if you have a doctor, why do you need a health coach, right? But it's actually, I would love for you to talk a little bit about it, because I think that I know the answer to that, meaning that I feel like I know the answer to that because I feel it, I sense it. I just can't necessarily describe it well. But kind of for someone who's maybe wonders the same thing, it would be great to know, why do you need a health coach if you have a doctor or whatever?
Sure. That's a great question. I say, and for listeners, actually, Dr. Houghton did a podcast episode, I think maybe episode 2. I partner with him, and I think I mentioned it even on that podcast. He's my functional medicine physician as well, has been for years. And we love working together because that's how we get the best results. I totally simplify it by saying he's the what and I'm the how. So when we sit down together, as you know, we co-create this care plan of like, okay, we go through the labs, and yes, at this point I can go through the labs and I know what he's going to say, but I'm still not a physician. And I help you implement that plan. And it's the how, because like you mentioned the cooking. I work with clients that are men in their 60s that don't cook, that live alone. I work with, busy working moms. Everybody's lifestyle is different. And that's my job, is to help you make it a lifestyle, and not this like, okay, I can bite the bullet and like white knuckle it for a month and eat just right. And that's not the point. And it's how do we incorporate, Dr. Houghton spends an hour with his new patients, then he orders labs, then he spends another hour with them. Think of how much time I've had to kind of glean what your life is like really daily, and how we can approach things to actually successfully get them done. Even a great functional medicine provider who spends way more time than your primary care, can't get all that information at once. And so that's, to me, and it's the same, my packages include him, because what I've found was people would hire me and we'd be working together and we get the labs, and I'm like, all right, well, I know you need things that you need a physician for, and I would refer to him. And so I always say, working that team approach really gets the best results. Yeah. And so I don't know if that was how you've experienced it.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt about it, because Dr. Houghton doesn't tell me, oh, you need to, find this sour cream replacement that tastes really good, doesn't have any bad stuff added to it, that kind of stuff. But that's what you do. And so when I encounter kind of inflammation, or encounter something like a sunburn, for example, that increases inflammation, my first text is to you, because because I mean, the doctor doesn't necessarily want to deal with all this stuff.
Right.
And his skill is better spent doing more clinical analysis of your results and really treating you, as opposed to telling you what cream to put on your skin so that the sunburn goes down, kind of thing.
Yeah, well, it's true. And, again, it goes back to that team approach, as far as the way we work in my programs is pretty unique, because it's usually hard to get a hold of the doctor, that often. And so, he knows what's going on even between labs, if there's something that needs adjusting. And that's just because, knowing when I work with you, there's all this basis, versus if you just, a patient who wasn't working with me, he still tries to be very accessible to his patients. But, if they send an email with a question, well, he doesn't have the backstory. He doesn't have the,
Correct.
and so, I know some people think I'm crazy that my clients text me questions at all hours. I love it. It's the way that we get the best results.
I mean, I certainly don't expect answers at all hours, but
no, and I don't,
it,
and I always, that's what I tell people, I turn my phone off when I'm sleeping. It's on airplane mode. And so, yeah, it's really, the health coach is the partner, like walking the plan with you.
Yeah. And it's really nice because you have all the resources and you've already been through that yourself.
Yeah.
And so it's really helpful to like, you've already tried different products, different, let's say cauliflower pizza or sour cream made of almond and coconut milk, that kind of stuff. And so I don't have to spend time looking for it because you already know that. So it's really powerful for me too, because I don't have time to look for the stuff.
Right. But, and that's exactly, you just hit the, knowing that you'll be more successful with those substitutes versus the doctor's just going to say, avoid dairy.
Right.
So that's the difference. And hopefully what made it, I know it didn't feel easy, but easier for you. But like I said, you are so inspiring to me, that I wanted you to share, because the whole purpose of the podcast is to inspire people to take that one step, like do one thing. And also to not give up. And so you are that poster child of, and now it's fun because now you're hooked. Now you're like, what can I improve? And, that's the best part. That's what happened to me, is once I got well enough, and now it's just like, oh, I want better.
And so for me, the next step is the monitoring the sleep and understanding how eating later or earlier or drinking wine or getting a sunburn, it really affects the body temperature and the sleep and the quality of sleep too. So that's the next level for me to kind of get that under control. So I'm really excited about that.
I love it. And as you know, this is a passion point for me. And again, we started at square one, which was like, you needed to get more sleep. And now you're tweaking and fine tuning, because you're like, no, just like every other area in life, I want the best. I want, because you're realizing that everything you do is impactful. Well, I am so grateful that you were willing to share some of your journey. This was so exciting for me, because we usually start with, whatever the healthcare professional is on, shares their little personal journey, which is always inspiring. But to really take the time and have you just show up genuinely for us and share, like, hey, you know what, like these are the things I found important. And even though some things used to feel hard, now they don't. I say, Tatiana did it. Y'all can do it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
For people interested, I know this is a little different. It's not like you have a health program. But for anybody who's like, I'm a business owner and I want to reduce the overwhelm in my business. Where's a good place for people to check you out? Because I think you're incredible and I love to walk around being the poster child for your services.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for saying that. I live on Instagram, even though I'm kind of present on all the platforms, thanks to my amazing social media manager. But I really live on Instagram. So if you want to connect and DM me, absolutely do it. Don't spam, because obviously I get a lot of spam, but I just ignore it. But either Instagram or my website, tatianatsoir.com, or there's a little shortcut, talktotatiana.com. It takes you to my website and find the resources. I have a lot of free resources that you can download and get started that could really take you to the next level in your business.
I love it. And you have amazing podcasts as well. And all those links will be in the show notes for everybody so they can find you. And again, thank you so much. What would, if you, because I ask everybody else, so I have to ask you as well, what would you say is one step that listeners can take today to start to improve their health? Like just one thing everybody could do. I can't wait to see which she'll pick.
There's a lot of things, but I think that making a decision to take responsibility for your own health for me is number one, because I've tried it and it just doesn't work. Unfortunately, I tried shifting this responsibility for my health to doctors. I've tried shifting it to my mom, who's a doctor, to my dad, who was a doctor, to my husband, who's an engineer, like you tell me what to do kind of thing. But now knowing some of these basics that I not only know intellectually, but also have tried on my health and have seen to be true. I took charge of my own health, and now it's that I think that has really turned it around for me, where now it's not even a question. Now, when someone asks me, oh, you lost so much weight, right? Are you afraid? I'm afraid that you're going to roll back. And for me, it's not even an option. I don't even think about it, because I live in this new state of low inflammation. And even if inflammation comes up again, it's really easy for me to know exactly what to do, or at least know what to avoid and what to kind of take in. And I think that that's really powerful. But that started with my decision of, there's nobody else who can take charge of my health. Yes, other people help, but it starts with me. And so that was for me the number one step, I think.
I love that. You just blew me away. I had no idea what you were going to say. And for those that know me, I have a program called Take Your Power Back. That's what this is all about. But you're right. You have to make that decision first. And then you just keep looking for the answers and support and guidance that you need. So
yeah, exactly.
I'm so honored not only to share in your journey, but that you were willing to share with our listeners your success story. I imagine everybody listening is going to be inspired and encouraged, and I really appreciate you being here today.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
For everyone listening, remember you can get the show notes and transcripts by visiting inspiredliving.show. I hope you had a great time and enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I'll see you all next week.
Thank you for listening to Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity. Did you enjoy this episode? Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to get a transcript of this and every other episode, just head on over to inspiredliving.show or click on the link in this episode's description. There, you can also find everything we discussed in this episode, including links and information about our guest. You can even send in your questions to be answered by Julie in a future episode. That's inspiredliving.show. Until next time, this is Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, helping you take your power back.